Your Windows 10 just stopped getting security updates, and whether that's a real problem comes down to a pattern Microsoft has repeated for 40 years. Windows 1.0. Back in 1985, using a computer meant typing exact commands into a black screen called MS-DOS. Spell one wrong, and nothing happened. So Microsoft took its first crack at a computer you could actually look at. It sat on top of DOS and turned those typed commands into clickable icons, with simple stuff like a calculator and Paint. Problem was, the windows couldn't even overlap. They sat locked side by side like floor tiles. And to click those shiny new icons, you needed a mouse, which in 1985 almost nobody owned. So people basically bought a mouse to use an OS that came free, to do things they were already doing by typing. A hard sell. But 2 years later, Windows learned a trick that got Microsoft sued. Windows 2.0. The big upgrade here sounds tiny today. Windows could finally overlap each other. That's it. But it mattered, because now you could have Microsoft Word open while peeking at an Excel sheet behind it. Actual multitasking. Here's the fun part, though. Apple took one look at those overlapping windows and sued Microsoft, claiming they'd copied the Mac. And they lost, because back in 1985, Apple had signed a deal letting Microsoft reuse a bunch of those Mac interface ideas, partly to keep Microsoft making Word and Excel for the Mac. So when Apple sued over the look, the court basically said, "You licensed this away yourself." Oops, that lawsuit is a big reason Windows still looks the way it does today. But Windows was still a tool for office nerds. What finally dragged it into normal people's homes? Windows 3.0 and 3.1. This is the one that actually took off. Released in 1990, it added full color and a cleaner look, and it ran on the newer, faster processors of the time, so it could finally handle heavier programs without choking. Then version 3.1 added something you use every single day without thinking: drag and drop. Grab a file, drag it where you want, let go. Before this, moving a file meant memorizing clunky commands. Suddenly a computer felt like something a regular person could poke at without a manual. And for the first time, families started buying PCs for the house, not just the office. Windows was in homes now, but it still kind of looked like a toy. Then came the version that set the template we're all still using. Windows 95. Say hi to the most important Windows ever made. It dropped in 1995 and basically invented the desktop you still recognize today. The start button in the corner, the taskbar along the bottom, one place to find all your stuff. That was all new, and it was such a good idea that 30 years later, we're still using it. It also brought plug and play, which meant you could connect a printer and have it just work. Before this, plugging in a device meant hunting down and installing the right driver by hand, like doing tech support on yourself. Oh, and right around here, Internet Explorer entered the picture, not in the original box, funnily enough, but bundled in soon after through an add-on pack and later updates, introducing millions to this new thing called the Internet, even if, back then, it crashed if you looked at it funny. 95 gave us the blueprint. Windows 98 polished it and handed the world the most famous crash in tech history. Windows 98. 98 was the tune-up. The internet got more stable, and it added full support for USB, that one universal plug we now use for everything. Before USB, every device had its own weird port. Total chaos. But 98 is really remembered for one glorious moment. Microsoft was showing it off live on stage at a huge tech expo. Bill Gates standing right there, when an assistant plugged in a scanner to demo plug and play, and the whole thing froze into a bright blue error screen in front of the entire world. Gates just laughed and said, "That must be why we're not shipping it yet." Legendary. Anyway, 98 was mostly fine, which made the next one feel even worse, because it's the first real clue to a pattern. Windows ME. This one arrived in 2000, and honestly, it's widely considered one of the worst versions ever made. It was just unstable. Open a program and your PC might lag, freeze, or crash for no reason at all. It did introduce System Restore, a genuinely useful feature that rewinds your computer to before things broke. Except, fittingly, even System Restore didn't always work. People started calling it the Mistake Edition. Keep that hatred in mind, because what came next didn't just fix it. It secretly rebuilt Windows from the ground up in a way you never saw. Windows XP. In 2001, everything changed. This became one of the most loved versions of all time. On the surface, it was friendlier and faster, with that comfy green start button and the famous Rolling Hills wallpaper. But here's the reframe that explains this entire video. Every home version of Windows before XP was built on top of that ancient MS-DOS, basically a nice-looking coat draped over a shaky old skeleton, which is exactly why they crashed so much. XP threw that skeleton out and switched to a sturdy new foundation called NT, the same rock-solid core big companies already trusted. You never saw it, but that's the real reason your PC today doesn't blue screen every afternoon like Windows used to. The thing that fixed Windows wasn't the wallpaper. It was the invisible foundation underneath. XP was so good, it stuck around for over a decade, which made whatever came next look like a disaster by comparison. Meet the most hated Windows of its era. Windows Vista. 2007's big release was all about trying to be beautiful. It added a slick see-through glass look and fancy animations, plus a new security guard called User Account Control that popped up to ask permission before anything changed your system. Good ideas, all of them. The problem? That gorgeous glass look was so heavy it turned normal computers into slideshows, and that security pop-up appeared so constantly that people wanted to throw their mouse across the room. Vista got absolutely roasted. But here's the twist. The version everyone worships next only exists because Vista did the hard, ugly, thankless work first. Windows 7. This one, from 2009, is the version people still beg Microsoft to bring back. And its secret is almost cheeky. It took all of Vista's ambitious ideas, the pretty glass look, the security system, and simply made them run well. No lag, no constant nagging. It also added Snap, where you drag a window to the edge and it neatly fills half the screen, plus instant search for your files. It quickly became the most used OS on the planet. Now stand back and look at the rhythm. ME was hated, XP was loved, Vista was hated, 7 was loved. See it? Windows has a curse. Every other version is a disaster. But here's the part nobody says out loud. The bad versions are the brave ones. They take the big, risky swings that flop, and the good version, right after, just cleans up the mess and takes all the credit. Vista was the crash test dummy. 7 drove off in the finished car. So if 7 was the cleanup, the pattern says the next one's a wild gamble. Oh, it was. Windows 8. Right on schedule, the 2012 release was a swing and a miss. It wasn't buggy, it was just baffling. Microsoft got so excited about touchscreens and tablets that they ripped out the beloved Start menu and replaced it with a giant grid of colorful tiles built for poking with your finger. Which is great if you have a touchscreen. But most people were sitting at a regular laptop with a mouse, suddenly scrolling sideways through a wall of tiles just to find Word, feeling like they'd been handed someone else's phone. People revolted so hard that Microsoft rushed out Windows 8.1 a year later. But here's the sneaky part. They brought back the Start button, not the actual Start menu. Click it, and you still got flung right into that wall of tiles. The real fix, an actual Start menu, was still one version away, so Microsoft went into full damage control mode. Windows 10. This one arrived in 2015, and it was the great apology. It took the normal Start menu everyone missed, kept a tasteful sprinkle of the modern tile look, and just felt like Windows again. It added handy stuff like virtual desktops, separate workspaces so your chaos doesn't all pile onto one screen. And Microsoft made a bold promise. This would be the last version of Windows, ever. Just updated forever. Cute story. Because in October 2025, Windows 10 officially hit the end of the road. No more free security updates, unless you pay for an extension. So, the last Windows quietly died, right on schedule. And that broken promise is exactly why the version you're on right now matters more than any before it. Windows 11. From 2021, this is where most people are today. At a glance, it looks like 10, with the Start menu politely nudged to the center. It's got nicer window snapping layouts and tabs in your file browser, small quality of life wins, but it came with one genuinely divisive catch. It demands a security chip called TPM 2.0, which quietly locked millions of perfectly good, still fast PCs out of upgrading at all. And lately, Microsoft's been stuffing its AI assistant Copilot into every corner of it. Honestly, 11 doesn't feel wildly different from 10, and that's the point. Remember the pattern? 11 is a cleanup year, not a gamble year, which tells you something about what's coming. The cheat sheet. Okay, screenshot time. Here's 40 years of Windows in one breath. The DOS era, 1.0, 2.0, and 3.1, was the clumsy, crash-prone childhood. 95 built the desktop we still use. XP swapped the shaky DOS foundation for the solid NT1. And that's the invisible line between old Windows that crashed and modern Windows that doesn't. And then the rhythm: me bad, XP great, Vista bad, 7 great, 8 bad, 10 great, and 11 a quiet cleanup. Now here's the part that actually pays off. That every other one is cursed pattern isn't a joke. It's Microsoft's whole rhythm. A daring, messy experiment, then a polished fix, over and over. The hated versions did the scary innovating. The loved ones swooped in and got the glory. And since 11 is clearly a polish year, the next big gamble is already loading. Except this time, it's not a new number. It's the whole AI Copilot era being bolted onto Windows itself. So what should you actually do right now? If you're on Windows 10, that's the real takeaway. It stopped getting security updates in late 2025. So if your PC can run 11, it's genuinely time to move up. If it can't, because of that TPM chip, you're choosing between paying for extended support, buying newer hardware, or looking at something like Linux. And if you're already on 11, relax. You're on the good side of the curse, at least until the next big swing lands. For just about anyone, that's every version of Windows, why half of them flopped, plus where you stand today. If this made it click, a like really helps the channel. Subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, which Windows do you miss the most? See you in the next one.